So I feel like the newbie here because unlike most people here seem to have about 20 years experience in printing, mine's probably limited to 2 years. So I'm learning a hell of a lot here. My background is very different. It's in quite heavy engineering. So I did 25 odd years in steel and before that in glass. So yeah, so very new to the printing industry. And I can tell a bit of a story about how I got involved. But first of all, I'll tell you a little bit about Perigon, because Perigon is also a very new company. We've heard a lot about collaboration over the past day or so, and Perigon really is a result of a very good collaboration between two companies, Tricor being a technology company based in Farnham, who developed the high-definition microfusion transfer technology, which is a derivative really of sublimation printing. And Zeal is a very well-established company, been in operation for around about 120 years. Many of you will know them. They're experts in film extrusions and also in coatings. And their real business was always based around photographic film, paper for printing onto, so very much in the analog business. Tricor in the process that we developed uses a lot of film, but they've always bought film in traditionally from Italy, from Korea, and also from Germany. But we got together with Zeal around about 2 years ago, and we thought we'd create a stronger collaboration to work together. We needed film, and they needed a market to sell it through. So we've been working with them now very closely for 2 years. 18 months ago, so in May last year, we formed a full joint venture, and we've worked extremely closely together. Tricor is only a very small business. We're about 20 people. And so the benefit it gives to Tricor is reach. Zeal have 8 or 9 distribution centers around the US. Clearly the financing as well. They're a good-sized company of 400 people. And so it seemed a natural collaboration. So that's who Perigon is. What do we bring to the market? We rely a lot on inkjet printing because we need the digital imaging, but it's very much a transfer technology. And our real selling point is that we can print onto any three-dimensional surface on just about any material. So we'll go through that in a bit more details shortly. To us, and particularly to Zeal, given the amount of plastic they produce, sustainability is absolutely critical. And what we try to do is control the plastic that we use. So we can't, it's great to avoid the use of plastic, but if you can't avoid the use of plastic, let's at least look after it and recycle it. So that's the approach that we take, and we try to make sure that we're recycling all the plastic that we use. As part of my time in steel, I spent still spent 17 years over in Asia. I did a lot of scuba diving over there, and a lot of times in distant places. So we'd be diving 200 miles off the coast of an island, and it was always struck me about how much plastic we still see in the ocean. And when you see it firsthand, it becomes quite hard-hitting. And when you look at some of the statistics on the plastic, plastics are 80% of the debris in the ocean. This is the really scary part. Every day, about 8 million pieces of plastic fall into the ocean, which is quite a scary amount. And we can go through that, and we can say, yes, we're getting better at controlling our plastic. And we're recycling more and more, but plastic production is forecast to treble by 2050, so the size of the problem is also getting bigger. So how do we really manage this? And these are just some charts produced by McKinsey's. You can see in the top right one, we only manage to recycle around about 12% of the plastic that we use. So the majority of the rest goes into incinerator, landfill, or dumped. So we've still got a massive problem ahead of us, and how can we sort of manage this and improve? So we've been working extensively on bottles over the past year and a half, and there's lots of really good bottle decorating technologies. Direct-to-product is evolving extremely fast, and it's great to see some of the presentations this morning. The traditional ones are screen printing, spray coating, hot foiling, but there's only 2 technologies really that can print onto the full 360 degree of the bottle. So, print the entire bottle, so we can also print up the neck, the sleeve, and everywhere else. There's about 4 or 5 companies in the world who can do that, who really manage the HDMF or can print using HDMF technology. So, but the real big difference is the recycling issue that we face with sleeve shrink wrap. And it's great to see the bottle manufacturers now moving out there and saying we're going to eliminate sleeve shrink wraps. And most of them set goals to eliminate that completely from their process by 2030, which is a massive step in the right direction. Yeah, they look great. Shrink sleeves are, they look extremely well. They're cheap to produce, they're very easy to apply. But the big problem is it's very, very difficult to recycle these. So in the recycling plants, when you're recycling the bottles, if you have labels on the bottles, you normally smash the bottles, you go through a washing plant, the labels float to the top, and they're very easy to separate from the glass. With sleeves, they're traditionally made from PET, so they also sink to the bottom, so it's very, very difficult to separate them. So it's a massive challenge. With our coating technology, we have to use plastic, so we print onto a plastic film, and then we transfer the image from the polymer onto the glass. And that way we keep all the plastic in-house, and the biggest issues with recycling plastic is when it gets into the hand of the consumer, they're not very good at recycling. So we keep the problem in-house in the manufacturing businesses, and we recycle the PET ourselves. The bottles are fully recyclable. All the components used in HDMF are either water-based or they're pure PET, so they're all 100% washable and all 100% recyclable. The recycled PET, there's an incentive for manufacturers to recycle it because it has a value. So the recycling companies are happy to buy this back from the manufacturers. They can wash it and they can recycle it. The film that's used can have up to a 30% recycled component. So it really is becoming a full circular economy. The actual process itself this is the process massively simplified. But we start off with an APEF film. There's an aqueous coating put onto the film, which is a very special coating, but it's a water-based coating. The film is then printed using dye sublimation inks and inkjet printers. So you have very high resolution images going onto the film. The film is then heated using infrared energy to the softening point. And after the film is softened, it's then vacuum wrapped around the product. And then using pulse or infrared energy over a period of around about 2 to 3 minutes, depending upon the product, the molecular structure of the product opens up. The dyes are turned into a gaseous state and it's basically sublimated across into the product. And that process takes around about 2.5 minutes. This is just a couple of various steps of the way the process works. We start off with the products in a tray. We start off with the image on the film. The film is placed over the tray, and then the tray enters a heating chamber. We use infrared energy. The vacuum is wrapped around the product, and the products are printed. Some of the real big benefits is the registration that we can achieve on this are down to 0.3 millimeters. So, every single time we print the barcode on the back of a bottle, or we print the image on the front of the bottle, the registration on those are down to within 0.5 millimeter. The other real big benefit is that once it's printed onto the surface, it's printed into the surface. So I can get my car keys and try and scratch this, and you're not going to scratch it off. So that also means that when it's going down the bottling lines, you don't need any further plastic sleeves over the bottles to stop them getting chipped or bashed when they're going down the line. We do have some limitations, of course, as well as does every print technology. We are reduced down to CYMK. So if we need to introduce whites into a product, we need to put a white base coating onto the product. And we can't print metallic colours, but there's ways around those, such as hot foiling and other complementary print technologies. So we think that HDMF is a great print technology, and other print technologies will also complement it as well. I really enjoyed the presentation this morning about the combination of lithographic and digital, because I think there's room for that on bottling lines as well. We can't print into any products, so we are focusing on bottles, but to show where it all started, the whole HDMF program started when we started off really with Under Armour in the US, where they came to us and said, listen, the whole world is going customization and going personalization, and we want to be able to print shoes for people in the shops. So what we developed in the US is a person can walk into a shop, he picks up an iPad, and he'll design his shoe on the iPad from a series of patterns. He can then personalize that with his name or some, his favorite football club or whatever. And then he can press that to drop that in the basket, and then it'll come out of the basket, be printed out onto a piece of film, and go into this small oven in the shop. And within 3 minutes, the customer will be walking out with a personalized pair of shoes. So it's a fantastic image. Under Armour are rolling this out now across 80 stores, across the US and now into Asia. And it really does bring personalization to the consumer. What they also found as well was the cross-selling opportunities that they have from this are huge. So we've done a couple of, I don't know if there's anybody from Epson here today, but we printed a few shoes for Epson as well. Where we are now is we're working extensively as well with Crocs, and they're going down customization. So they're doing activations in various stores. So in London, they used local artists from London to develop these. That was Tejamola Butler, created these images, and we ran those for 4 weeks in Selfridges. There's another famous, there's a Jean Marcier, who's a famous French street artist. We ran this activation for them in Stadium in Paris for 5 weeks. We're doing another one for a week in Dubai. We've run them in Berlin as well. So Crocs are now also going much down the route of customization as opposed to personalization, which is where Under Armour are going. So it's about bringing a local theme to the product, and that's what digitalization really enables us to do here. That was a slight digress into shoes. But part of the work I've been working on with Perigon is it's great to do shoes in a small machine this big by this big that can print 10 pairs a day or an hour. But to print bottles, we needed far bigger process capabilities. So we developed our process from being a small, 5 pairs or 10 pairs of shoes an hour to being able to have these machines now, which are far more automated, which can each print around about 2.5 million bottles a year. So we're getting up to this, we've really taken the HDMF technology or the sublimation technology and scaled it so we can go into much bigger volumes. So there's a lot of automated technology gone into this. We have automated loading, unloading, turning, automated extrusion of the film coming off the back end, which can be chipped and baled and sent back to the recycling company. So it's really been looking at this now as, how do we scale up so we can work with the likes of Bombay Sapphire and be printing their bottles. We've had, we started off working with some of the smaller companies. This was probably our first commercial bottle project that we printed. And packaging now, I think somebody mentioned before, nobody's got any idea what's in the box. And it's the same with these drinks. It's probably half of the bottles filled with sugar. But people now buy on the image and the presentation of the packaging as much as what's actually inside and the taste of it. So there's a lot of interest, particularly from the small boutique gin mills, where they want small runs of 20 or 30,000 bottles, as opposed to the big boys such as Bombay who want 3 or 4 or 10 or I don't know how many millions of bottles they produce a year, but it's certainly a lot. We're also we've been printing now for Old Elk as well, which is another bourbon whiskey producer. They're printing 70,000 caps a day, but now they're also going into printing the bottles as well. And again, they're going down the route of saying, right, we want to start doing special edition bottles. HDMF isn't at the sort of scale or the level or the place yet where it can go out and print the normal everyday commodity gins, and we can never print all the Bombay Sapphire bottles. It's too expensive for a start at this moment in time, so the cost is a bit prohibitive. But it is great for the special editions, for the customization bottles, where it is limited runs of 100,000, 200,000, 500,000 bottles. We just finished printing for Bombay Sapphire. Some of the feedback we've had from the bottle industry is about using a combination of inkjet printing and the HDMFS. It's the sharpness of the text that we're getting on the bottles. They've never seen the sharpness of the text like this before. So we're getting some really positive feedback. So we eliminated all the plastic, and we have super sharp text, and also the registration is extremely accurate. It's being tested, there's some of the statistics down there. It's been tested on the bottling lines. The coatings that we're using on the bottles are all extremely dishwasher proof. We're using them also on, the technology is now also being used extensively in the US for the mug industry. So they can also print over the handles and print fluted mugs and other shaped mugs apart from just the traditional builder's mug. So moving on to different shapes as well. So then everything that we're using is always water-based, so it's fully washable. And we're also expanding into lots of other markets as well. So we're working extensively with candle decorators, diffusers, and other companies or any different shapes. Moving away, a lot of candle companies as well. If you go around all the Christmas fairs and Christmas markets, there's huge amounts who are selling candles for very expensive prices, just with a label put on the back and relying on their fragrances. But this does open up a whole new sort of market for them. I'm working with some of the big brands, Jo Malone, L'Oreal, on printing candle jars and diffusers for them, so they can, again, once they finish with the use of the jars, they don't just throw them in the bin. They start using them as glasses. They'll wash them. They're dishwasher proof, so it becomes part of the stuff that they're using every day, their kitchenware they're using every day in their house, or decorating with roses, rather than just throwing them in the bin at the end of the use. So all the time we're trying to build upon the idea of sustainability and recyclability. So that's a short introduction to HDMF. In summary, what we're really focusing on is a more sustainable solution, and that sustainable solution isn't eliminating plastic, it's managing the plastic. So every piece of plastic we use is recycled, and we keep it out of the consumer's hands, because consumers are absolutely rubbish at recycling. It is digital, so we have premium designs, very short runs. There's a lot of the in-mold designs, a lot of the all the printing processes require very large runs. We can run off, on this particular bottle, the Bombay Sapphire Grief acid, they could all have individualized bottles for the 120 who worked on it, so it took us no longer to personalize and write everybody's name on the bottles than to print off just a normal run of standard bottles. So it's very low SKUs, and we're more than just bottles, so we are printing now onto lots of different things. We're, as mentioned before, working with Under Armour, working with Adidas now, working with Crocs and lots of other companies too. So it is a new technology. It's still a young technology, it's got a long way to go. I see it being very complementary to many of the other print technologies that we've seen or I've heard here this morning. And yeah, it's another one which hopefully will reduce the amount of plastic going into the bin or the ocean or somewhere else. So, thank you.